Hey y'all, welcome to season 2 of the Tears and Joy podcast. I'm your host, Julia Light, and I am so glad you're here. Last season on the show, I interviewed 15 leaders, dreamers, and trailblazers who are doing incredible things in the world while navigating life in their 20s with honesty and joy. This season is all about living deeply, getting vision, and shaping culture right where you are. So, we're talking to more people who are doing just that. Everyone you'll hear from on this season is in the next season of life, so out of their 20s, from founders to artists to CEOs, and we're asking the real questions about early career days and how they built a life and a career that they love, learning to dream big and be present even in the messy middles so we can all do the same. Let's jump in. Hey friends, welcome back to the Tears and Joy podcast. I'm so excited today to have Veronica Reyes-How on the show.
Hi.
Hey Veronica.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm good. It's a good day.
It is a good
I've been up since 3:30, but it's still a good day.
Right. But it's a full good day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full days are good days.
Full days are good days. That's good. Yay. Well, y'all, I'm going to read Veronica's bio so that you can get to know this amazing person. Veronica Reyes-How is an award-winning writer, actor, and producer based in New York City. A graduate of the University of Michigan with a BA in mathematics, she left a career in technology consulting when an open call audition resulted in her booking the national tour of Rent. Other acting credits include Miss Saigon, the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, CBS's Blue Bloods, NBC's The Blacklist, CBS Person of Interest, and ABC's Alex Inc. She produced and acted in a short film that was accepted into 10 film festivals and won the Best Micro Thriller at the 2018 Austin Revolution Film Festival. As a director, she has worked for TheaterWorks USA, the Barrow Group, and Unity Stage Company. All of these roads led to her love of writing original narratives. In the pandemic, Veronica began writing. Her scripts garnered attention as finalists in a variety of writing competitions, which led to several writing jobs. One of these jobs was being hired to create, write, and executive produce an independent TV series, something she had never attempted before. She is currently working on this project, meeting with distributors to secure a deal. Another job she held was as the head writer and architect of the world and stories for a nonprofit's foray into the animated kids series arena, thus combining her love of writing, mathematics, education, and comedy. In 2024, Veronica launched her production company, Pinoy Cinematic Universe, and continues to develop and produce content that inspires and elevates the underrepresented. Amazing! Thanks for being here, Veronica.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for reading that.
Wow, what an amazing bio. I'm so excited to hear about your journey. Okay, Veronica, I would love for us to start with a 5-minute origin story of your 20s, because this podcast, last season, I interviewed a bunch of people who are like Gen Z in their 20s doing cool stuff. And now I'm interviewing people who are in the next season of life who are not in their 20s, who are actually far into their careers, trailblazing, doing incredible things. But I'm curious how you got into this, because we got a little hint that you started out working in mathematics and technology consulting. So Tell us, how did you get here?
Yeah. So I graduated college, and which version of this am I telling? Well, I graduated college and I applied for jobs, but I applied for jobs based on, long story short, I always loved the arts as a kid, but my parents and my whole family were like, you're never going to do that. But I went to an arts camp when I was a kid, and I just loved acting, and I knew I loved that, but my parents were like, never in your life will you do this.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. Anyway, my brother was a consultant at a consulting firm, and he didn't get staffed for a long time, but what I understood was he was getting paid, and he'd have to go to the office, but he had a job, but he wasn't on a project. So he had 3 days all day. And I was like, wait, what? What job is this?
I want this job.
So I applied to all these consulting firms.
Oh my gosh.
And I got a couple offers, and then I picked one in Chicago because I thought, I'm going to be on the beach. That's what they call it. I'm going to take acting classes and singing classes.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm like, that's so great. I'm bankrolled. Well, as soon as I got on the job, we were just doing, the first 3 days of the job was just and it was in downtown Chicago, and they were
Uh-huh.
like, here's your 401k, here's your health insurance, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And on the first day, I got called. They were like, you have a phone call in the hallway. And I'm like, oh, okay,
in
phone
the
call.
hallway.
Yeah. And I went, and it was a manager who's like, are you in your, doing the whatever requisite like training of like learning what learning your salary and what it goes to and blah. And I was like, yeah. They were like, we're going to bring you out to the client site
No way.
tomorrow.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
oh my gosh, I have to work.
This is not what I planned.
I took this job because I thought I didn't have to work.
Oh no.
Anyway, it was fine actually. Like I got there, and it was in the suburbs of Chicago, and this is kind of also how I'm wired. And you know what? Actually, they're one of the first people who sort of showed me how I work best.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Which I thought was really great. And I kind of
Yeah.
understood it in college, but not to the extent that I understood it. But I work best like independently. If you just tell me what the goal is and what needs to happen, I'll just do it. I'll put in all the hours. I'll put in whatever. I'll figure it out. I'll talk to all the people I need to talk to. So they just put me on my first project, and that went really well. And then like the second project I got was like one where they let me manage myself.
Love that.
And it was like 3 months into the job, and they were like, your manager will like check in once a month, but otherwise just go.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Great.
But that's actually how I got to the point of like, I'm going to audition for Rent, because I was working like 16-hour days and just working all the time. Like I'll do that to myself.
Okay.
I'm like, got to finish this thing. And
Yeah.
I'll get the obligation of like, I got to work.
Yeah.
And I just thought, this can't be, and I was making really great money.
Yeah.
I was like, this can't be what life is about. So I just kept thinking, like, if I was going to die in a year, what do I want to do?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I just wanted to be in this musical Rent that I loved.
That's
I feel like it's funny now because if you say Rent, people are like, what is that? But it was like my favorite
Rent.
musical.
I was in a youth production of Rent when I was 14.
I love
And so I'm like, it made its way into the 2010s. Like, I also understand,
Nice. I love it. It still lives.
It's
just like,
so-
it's such an epic
oh my
musical.
gosh, it's so epic.
It's like the first time I heard it, I'm like, oh, this is a musical.
This is different.
I love it. So
So good.
I just had this idea that I would go to an open call, and I kind of thought I would spend like the rest of my life trying to be in Rent. And then
Oh
I
my
went to an open
gosh.
call and I got it. That's like the abbreviated version, but that I
Right.
did. And I'm like, what? So then I left my job and I became an actress.
Oh my gosh.
And then, so I spent my 20s. I spent my 20s figuring out what it was to be an actress. But I feel like I took that, like when I say I used to work 16-hour days,
Yeah.
I also think I was kind of weird backstage. I remember during Rent or like Miss Saigon, I'd always like read a lot of acting books. And, like,
Yes.
backstage. And I think people were like, what are you doing? Just because I just thought,
yeah.
I just was like, well, if I'm doing this, I really want to do this
Do
well.
it. Yes.
And I would ask people, I remember asking people in the chorus of Miss Saigon, being like, what are you guys thinking about when we do this scene and we're
I love
walking?
that.
And people were
Yeah.
like, what? Nothing. I'm thinking, what's dinner?
oh my, not
Cool,
dinner.
cool, nice dinner. Great.
No, but that's
Okay.
so good. And I feel like for the people who they're like they do like not book the national tour right away, I feel like they would be like, I'm so glad that that's what the people are doing. Like, I feel like how you spent that time is like what a lot of people are like, if I had this opportunity, I would want it to be like this. And so I feel like it's actually really good to hear like
Oh, good.
someone who's so grateful for the opportunity and wanting to make the most of it. And I feel like that's paid off really well in your life.
Yeah, maybe. I think I just think like I was so obsessed with acting. I just loved it.
Wow.
And but the thing is, like, I think I knew I wanted to be an actor when I was 5.
wow.
And so it just felt like, wow, I'm doing this thing, but I
Yes.
don't have the skill.
okay.
And so I just wanted to have the skill, and I wanted to study it. And I got all these like Stanislavski books and Meisner books
Yes.
and whatever. So I spent a lot of time studying and then working, and I feel like I really lucked out. I went from show to show to another show.
Amazing.
So I did a lot of musicals, and
Yeah.
then I was sick of traveling because I was never in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I landed back in New York City, and that's when I started. I'm just gonna tell you, this is why I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I think this is my story so that I can repeat it to other people. It's not really about me,
I love that.
but people will tell you all the time that this is impossible, this is too hard. You could never do voiceovers because that's a really, I mean, people told me, they were like, you're never going to do voiceovers. It's so niche and you have to be in LA and nobody here hires for voiceovers. And meanwhile, I ended up just doing, like my first commercial audition was a voiceover job. And you get that in your head though. You're like, wow, nobody books voiceovers.
This is impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible. I can't believe I have an audition for this thing. But I'm like, and I just went in and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is what I'm doing. And then I booked it and I was like, wow, that's my first voiceover job. And like that worked out.
That's great.
So I'm like, I feel like I really love, maybe, I hope other people say this too. I really love aging.
Wow.
Because you can look back at things and go, that wasn't about me. That's about just taking down stigma or the idea that things have to be harder than they are. Now, here's the thing. Things could be really hard. And sometimes they were really hard. I went through really hard years. But there were times that it was like, okay, the door just opened. Yeah. And then there were times that it was like, I'm on the ground, like crying in my apartment. And then it's like a really difficult thing. But I'm learning something through that. Yeah. And I'm learning something about myself. So that's great too. But sometimes the doors just open. People told me like cartoon voiceovers, you'll never do that in New York. And I did for like 3 years. Yeah. And, there was a time I was making all my money from voiceovers or I did commercials. Different people told me I wouldn't work on TV because all kinds of things. Oh. And so you hear all kinds of things like, you're too heavy, you're not pretty enough, all this stuff that you hear. Yeah. And I'm actually somebody who believes when people say things. I tend to. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that person said. But then I really feel this is where I feel like my faith comes in. Something in my spirit, even before I knew it was a Holy Spirit, something in my spirit would always be like, but what if that's not true?
Yeah. Like your life shows otherwise. What
if you could do these things? Yeah. And what if you just tried? And I'd be like, but I don't think I can try. Like so-and-so is an expert at the thing and said that you don't do these things. So I just think like that's what I love about aging is looking back and going, oh, all these things that people said were closed, that were impossible, that couldn't happen. Sometimes they just happen. Yeah. And then sometimes you also learn, I have to work really hard and I have to put in a lot of time. And sometimes you don't have to work that hard and the door just opens. So anyway, that's my 20s. I felt like a lot of things came about, but I learned, I just learned. I became someone who worked in the arts, which was like
the dream.
Wild to me. It was so wild to me. So that was my 20s.
Wow. Wait, that's amazing. And I do think it's cool to hear because you have done so many things and so many things that people said, like, you can't do this. Yeah. Like even showing up to a rant open call as a technology consultant with a math degree. Like, didn't somebody even you bumped into someone there? I don't know if you want to share that.
No, I'm like, they should hear this. No, they might never hear this. But I did bump into so my school is a big musical theater school. Right. And I knew musical theater people because I was in this a cappella group called Amazing Blue. Love. And that was honestly wild that I even got into that group. But I was in line for rent. And a couple of them walked by and they were like, what are you doing here? And I was like, what do you mean? And they said, you can't just like show up and audition for a musical. And I was like, isn't this an open call?
Like, what else would it be?
I was like, it says it's an open call. I've been waiting since like 4 a.m. and it says. And so, you know what? I almost left. I almost left line because of that. Because they walked away and they were kind of snickering a little bit. And I just, but here's the thing. They're really good. Yeah. Like they're like in the musical theater world back then, they were really good. Right. So it actually, I just kind of absorbed whatever they said. And then they left and I went, there's like a couple of them. And I went, oh my gosh, what am I doing here?
Mm.
How stupid am I? And I just thought, like, I should just go. But I didn't.
You didn't, and you got the
And
job.
I just like, yeah, but I did. I was like, yeah, this sounds stupid. What am I doing?
Mm.
What an idiot. But yeah, it worked out. It worked out. So
Yeah. That's so cool.
So
And I just feel like it's really helpful to hear, like, the fact that you did so many impossible things or things that people said would be so hard, but that you also experienced the fear and the hearing what
Gosh.
people said. Because sometimes it seems like when people are so audacious or such trailblazers that they don't even hear when people say you can't do it, and they just do it
Oh.
against all odds. But it's actually really helpful to hear, like, you can hear that. You can be sad. You can
Yeah.
be scared. And you can still do it. And you can still get it.
I'm all of those things in every day of my life. Like, I walk around scared. I said that to somebody the other day. They were like, you do not. I'm like, I definitely walk around scared all day, every day. I'm terrified. Like, because also I'm an introvert. Like, I'm chatty.
Oh my gosh.
So,
yeah.
but like, my preferred way of spending my evening is like at home with my husband and I'm reading a book. And
Yeah.
just like in bed and like not out. Just not out. And yeah, so it's always terrifying to do anything. But I'm like, maybe that's like a tagline for me. I'm like, just do it scared. I know people talk about that a lot. Just do it scared.
So good. Yeah, I've heard that before. I don't know where that quote is from. Courage is moving scared. Like,
Oh, interesting.
I've heard
I
that
like
somewhere. I don't know. Do it scared. Because, you
Yeah.
can be scared and brave at the same time.
Yeah. And also it's like, okay, do it scared and then just walk through it and I don't know, something might happen. Also, listen, I've definitely gone to auditions where like it's been like crash and burn and so embarrassing. Fine. Just
Yeah.
what it is that day. And
Yeah.
hopefully it's not, the next day.
Right. And you just keep moving forward.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
keep plugging along.
That's really good. Okay, so booking Rent at your first open call audition is kind of crazy. It's amazing.
It is crazy.
Do you have any
Yeah.
other like crazy stories of things you kind of can't explain that you're like, my life wouldn't look like this if
Ugh.
this thing hadn't happened?
Like one of the best things, I feel like one of the best things that happened to me at a different time was I did start to get some TV auditions because I started taking classes with casting directors.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it's not the agent I have now, but I was telling my agent, I said, oh, I think I'd like to maybe start auditioning for TV film. It's so naive. But she said, if I had an egg timer for every single time every musical theater
Yeah.
actress wants to do. And I was like, okay. So I took a class with this casting director of this big show. And then I got called in while I was taking the class.
Yeah.
And, and when I did the audition, he even said at the audition, he's like, look, you're very green.
Yeah.
He's like, but he's like, I wanted you to experience what this is like. And I just want you to like, he's like, you'll work hard at it and you'll keep preparing. And, so this is the thing. And then I got to take a class. This is the thing that I thought was like wild. I took a class with a casting director who's like the head of a network and for casting.
Mhm.
And I didn't think this person liked me, but I just worked really hard and I just thought, I'm just going to learn how to do these scenes. And she was teaching comedy and drama and all this stuff. And I
Mhm.
just like absorbed everything. I took notes and then I worked on camera at home. And then at the end of that class, she asked me to audition for this thing called the ABC Talent Showcase.
Mm-hmm.
And so I auditioned for it. And I kind of feel like, I mean, when you get opportunities, it's like, yes, I know I prepared, but also like she helped me. I think she helped me pave a way to get this thing.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's like every year they pick 10 actors to sort of showcase. And if I tell you the people who are in this, like I am not those people. So like there's also a contingency of people who are not successful, but like Lupita Nyong'o, Chadwick Boseman, Gina Rodriguez. Like it's almost like a training ground for 10 actors every year.
Yeah.
And like it's a long history of people who went through that program and did well. I have not achieved any of those things that those people have, but I was so grateful to have that door open and be a part of that program. Honestly, when they called me to tell me that I was in it, I was like, "What? No, I am not. Are you serious?" It's like that.
Are you serious?
I was taking a nap. Like my husband and I were back in Michigan, and I was taking a nap. It's like sometime in the summer, and I remember my cell phone went, and I looked, and I kind of recognized the number, and I'm like, "Hello." I'm like, "What? No way!" It's just such a big deal.
Cool. Yeah.
And I feel like, I feel like I got trained. It's such a big door to open, and actually, I think for me, I probably choked on the pressure. There's so much pressure, I think, and it was a little overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
I probably put all the pressure on myself, but it helped me get to the point where I am now in terms of learning how to make a show, learning how to write. She's also the person who told me, she said one day, she's like, "You should write. You're a writer."
Wow.
And I was like, really? I'm a writer?
How does she know? Like, did
I
you
don't
write something for a class?
No,
Or
I sent her I sent her an email this year being like, "How did you know?" This many years later from when she told me. I think she told me back in like 2018. And I just said, "How did you know? Like what were the identifiers?" She still hasn't answered that email. I'll bug her.
like, hi, just bumping this up. How did you know?
What did you see? Because I don't even use real words half the time.
But you are a writer, and she was correct.
Yeah. You know what? But I have a theory, and I don't know that it's true.
Do tell.
I just think it's a really big thing about when people speak things over you. Like I know I know that's a huge Christian concept, but and I don't think I had that a lot growing up, where people like spoke blessing over me.
Okay.
And so that was like, so in some ways I could be more grateful when people did, because I recognized it was different, right? So like when someone said, "You're a writer," I think my skeptic mind always goes to like, what do they want from me? Like what is like why are they saying that? And then, my mind calms down, because then at that time when she said, "You're a writer," she said, "Write some stuff and send it to me." And I'll, and honestly, I was too scared to do that when she said that.
Yeah.
It was like 2018. And then in 2020, when nobody had jobs, I started writing.
Wow.
And that was my first pilot that I wrote was, so my mom has a photographic memory, and she's a doctor. So I wrote a pilot about her life.
Wow.
And so that was like the first thing. I sent it to her, and she gave me notes, and she actually even came to a reading. It was a Zoom reading.
Oh.
She came to the Zoom reading, and it was such a big deal. People were like,
this person.
This person is here on this call. And they're like, "Why is she here?"
Yeah.
But it was really, and I think like going back to that idea of just like when people speak blessing over you, it makes a world of difference. So I feel like, obviously I'm not a perfect person, but I'm like, that's so important to speak blessing over people.
Yes.
And call out the things that they are and who God made them to be, so that they can fulfill that vision or that call. Otherwise, how do they know?
Literally, how do you know? And I will say, honestly, having like sat in this position with so many people now and asking them these kind of questions, it's a similar story for so many people that I like love and look up to, who have started businesses or had these creative careers. It's like someone sat me down and said, like my friend Rachel Snyder, she was like, someone who loves her sat her down and was like, "I think you should quit your job and be a chef." Like that happened to her. Like there's just so many like examples of that. And I just think that's so true. And it's like not wrong that you didn't come to that conclusion on your own. Like what a gift that someone spoke that over you.
It's a huge gift. It's wild too.
Wow.
Just because also it's not somebody who's in my daily life or who knows me. I feel like that's great. I feel I feel like I always had this question in my head. When people like go to accept an award or whatever in the acting world, they're always
Yeah.
like, thanks, mom and dad, for always supporting me and whatever. And I'm not saying my mom and dad didn't support me
Right.
and they weren't supportive, but it's so foreign. My mom's a doctor. My dad's an engineer.
Yeah.
Like, it's so foreign to them. They're like,
Yes.
what is this thing that you're doing?
Totally. Yeah,
so
literally.
It didn't make sense. And I almost sometimes, like, I have a writing job now and
Yeah.
I've had some writing jobs. And my parents still think I work for free. They're like,
Oh
I'm like,
my
how do you think I
gosh.
support myself? Like,
It's
I
not free.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, you're getting paid?
Yep.
Yes. I've been
Mhm.
getting paid since like 2008. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I work.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's amazing when people have like vision over your own life,
Yeah.
even if they're not. She's not in my life all the time. So just for someone to say like a drop in the bucket, say something like really
Right.
encouraging is really. And the other side, I'm like, there are a lot of people who have told me a lot of things that are like not blessing.
Right.
And so it's really easy to believe those things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when someone says something like that, it's just really significant.
Yeah. And when you have something to say to someone, you should say it. That's a blessing.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can
That's
see
really
that on
good.
somebody, it's one of the most important things I think we can do for one another.
I love that. Can you tell us a little bit about your faith journey? Did that happen in your 20s or?
It happened, yeah, it happened on a show. So it happened when I was
wow.
in Miss Saigon. I mean, look, if I went back, it kind of happened the whole entire time.
Yeah.
But I grew up Catholic
Mm-hmm.
and then didn't really mean much to me.
Yeah.
And so then when I moved to Chicago and I was working, I didn't go to church and I didn't continue. My parents had a habit of going to church every Sunday.
Right.
Didn't really matter to me. I went to Sunday school too. It didn't really matter to me. And then I got rent.
Mm-hmm.
And then from rent, I went to Miss Saigon. And on Miss Saigon, when I finished my contract, this woman came to replace me. And we
Uh-huh.
had lunch a couple times. And then she said, and she's still my friend today, which I love,
Oh.
but she just said, hey, can we have lunch one more time before you leave? I said, yeah, of course. And then she sat me down and she's like, I just want to tell you, I'm a Christian. And I think God sent me on this tour to talk to somebody about him, and it's you. And I was like, it's not me. Because at least my understanding of like the gospel and God, I was like, there's no way God like would approve of anything I'm doing in any part of my life.
Oh, wow.
Just living a very different lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so for her to say that, I was like, no, it's not me.
Mm.
Also, there were like 60 people in the cast. There's like a whole orchestra of like 30 people. It's a large touring company.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's not me.
Whoa.
And she's like, no, it's you.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, she wrote me all the scripture and she gave it to me and I just thought that was really sweet.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's nice.
Mhm.
And it's not for me. But she said, check out this thing. I forget what it's called now, but it was like actors and actors that are Christians.
Oh, cool.
The Haven.
Oh.
It's a million years ago.
Oh,
And it
cool.
was here in New York City. But she said, check out the Haven and, check out like my church is this. And I'm like, okay. And then I didn't.
Yeah.
I think I did go to the Haven once, but I just thought, that's not for me. And then, yeah, fast forward to she came home
Mm-hmm.
from tour and she called me up and she's like, hey, I'm going to go to church. Do you want to come with me?
Wow.
And I was like, oh. And she said, it's not a Catholic church, just so you know. So it'll be a little bit different, but it's not weird.
It's not weird.
It's not weird. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
sure. So I went with her. And I think it was the first time I'd actually like heard the gospel.
Wow.
When you hear it, but you're like, wow, that made an impact on me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't stop going to church after that.
Wow. Wow.
And I would always sit by myself because all I would do is sit in the back and cry.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
I was like, is this what the gospel is? Like, that's
Wow.
wild. I've never heard that. And I wasn't sure that
Yeah.
that's what it was, but it was just, I don't know, just to hear that Jesus loved us so much and like sacrificed for our sins and died for us and loved us, infinitely more than anyone could ever love us. I just thought, that's so wild. So the way I operate too is if you tell me something and I don't know it, then I just get really like studious academic about it. So this is a long time ago, but there is this Christian bookstore on 43rd and 8th Avenue.
Whoa.
Million years ago. But I went there and I just bought a bunch of books.
Wow.
So also I started reading the Bible. I just wanted to read it cover to cover. I'm like, what does this thing say?
Yeah.
'Cause you know what? In Catholic Church, we would like listen to the priest give a homily, but we didn't really read the Bible.
Yeah, my mom said that too. She grew up Catholic, and she was like,
Oh.
"Yeah, we never read the Bible very much."
No. So I read the Bible cover to cover and made notes and whatever. And then I bought this book. I happened to have just bought this book called Celebration of Discipline by Richard
That's a
Foster.
great book.
Great book.
Yeah.
And then just like a bunch of Henry Nouwen books and
Oh.
like Brennan Manning. I just bought a bunch of books.
Wow.
And I read them.
Those are good ones.
Yeah. And I'm like, what is this? And then fast forward to, I think I was a lot for my friends, like even my Christian friends who were like, you need to calm down. That was the constant thing that friends in the church were like, you're too much. Because I would just have all these questions and be
Yeah.
like, so what do you think about in John when it says whatever?
Oh, yeah.
But the one person who never thought I was annoying was Brad. So
Your husband.
my husband, my now husband, but then just this guy
Yeah.
that I met. And he would just always make time for questions and talk about the Bible. And that's kind of how we still are now. But I was just so fascinated by God. And we just always talked about, I feel like he discipled me without me really
Wow.
knowing that he was discipling me. He was just very patient. He's always like this. He's just very patient. Well, not always, but he's patient. Very patient, very kind, and also didn't act like he had all the answers and knew that he didn't have the answers.
Yeah.
But so he just really discipled me. And then it's funny because I think my whole faith journey really like lit on fire for the two of us, like when we ended up together.
Wow.
Because we would just like pray together all the time. We, should I say this on a podcast? Like, he had this pact with his friends growing up that they would save themselves for marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have any kind of that pact.
Yeah.
So we followed his pact, and
Aw.
that, and I just feel like it was such a blessing because
Wow.
we had to connect in other ways as a couple and
Yeah.
really honor the Lord in that. And so we did.
Wow.
And then when we got married, it's like we just sort of continued that journey of, putting God in the center of our relationship. And I think that's probably why the marriage has worked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, that's so beautiful. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
Wow. I love that. And I feel like you still have that joy for God and that just excitement.
More.
It's so beautiful.
Because it's like, I'm like, can I tell you, when I was in Rent, so annoying. I'd be like, right before curtain, I actually had to be up on the top of the rafters and all the rest of the cast was down there.
Yeah.
Because I was Alexi Darling
Yes.
on an everyday basis.
Alexi, darling.
Yeah, Alexi Darling. And sometimes I would just be like, guys, I'd yell down to them, like, guys, we're doing Rent.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like that kind of fervor for something that I just thought was so cool.
Yeah.
But like, God blows my mind every day.
Yeah.
I could just like fill years of just saying all the things that God has done.
Wow.
Because I'm like, I think it's also like I'm so detail oriented, and I know my schedule and I know my
Yeah.
life, and I'm really like just a certain way that I feel like I see God all over it.
Wow.
Because I'm like, oh, I know how this schedule goes. I know how this happens. And, you know, I just laugh at myself, and I'm sure God's laughing at me too,
Yeah.
because I see God break through in
Mm.
anything that I'm doing. And so like I'm like, how could I not be on fire? I've seen so many miracles. I
Wow.
cannot tell you. I've seen so many miracles that are just I mean, we have friends who are not Christian who are reading the Bible, actively reading the Bible right now.
Like, because they see your life and they're like, what's this about?
But then it's like, these are the same people, some of them, not all of them, but some of the same people who like 10 years ago or so were like, I just think it's weird that you're a Christian, but we like you guys. We like hanging out. Like, yeah, we're fun. But but they're like, but that's weird. So we'll just like pretend that's not. We're like, well, you don't care or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, I just think so many things.
Wow.
It's wild.
You have so much joy for life. You have so much purpose in your life. Tell us about vision. I know I'm going to ask you later more about your vision of the production company you have and what you're working on now. But as far as kind of your vision for your career, I feel like a lot of, young people who might be in acting or maybe other arts as well, but especially I feel like with acting, it can feel like I'm going to auditions and I can feel lucky if anything ever happens to me, like if anything ever sticks. And obviously you're writing, producing now, but how did you start to get a vision for what your career would be like and kind of have ideas of like, well, this is what I want, and so this is what I'm going to go after, and it not just be something that's like happening to you?
You know what's so interesting is I feel like in the beginning I had vision, right? So I was working 16, 18-hour days, and I'm like, I'm exhausted.
My vision is to not do this.
I don't want to do this. I don't care how much money they pay me.
Yeah.
I got to get out of here. So the vision was like, I love this musical Rent. I want to be in it.
Yeah.
That, I'd say now I start to have more vision on other things, but throughout, I guess I want to encourage people who don't have vision or don't see it, because I think part of it isn't necessarily like, I have vision and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I've tried to set that and then it just doesn't happen.
Okay. Yeah.
And you just get disappointed, and I've tried to set vision myself and like, it's going to be this. And so I feel like what I have learned, like through my 30s, what I learned is, I just invite God into all the things, and I just make it a conversation that we get to take this journey together. And I'm lucky to have Brad. So like when you say I'm bold and audacious, I'm like, the amount of phone calls where I call my husband and I'm like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you scared about? I'm like, I don't know. And then I'm just like putting this out there. I don't know if I've ever said this like in public, but this is very true. I feel like I have to show up in meetings, and I do. I have to show up in meetings mature. I'm pitching, so I have to talk like an adult.
Yeah.
I have to be someone who's confident. I have to be these things.
Right.
So I spend a lot of time calling my husband being like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared.
So you could be like that somewhere else. Yeah.
I have to do all that somewhere else
Yeah.
so that I can then be like, okay, I'm going to go into the meeting now.
Right.
Like switch voices.
Yes.
Bye. I'm like, bye. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
So good.
Great, so great to see you. Yes. So the proposal is, what am I doing with my life?
That's so good though. And I think everybody needs those people. So that's even just like, yeah, who do you have in your life that you can
stripped down
find
whatever the real emotion is, the real place
Yes.
of like just saying exactly how it's feeling. So I just say that to bold and audacious. I'm like, bold and audacious? I don't know. I really heavily rely on certain people to just sort of talk through what I'm afraid of and what I'm scared
Yeah.
about. And then it's like, okay, let's
and
be an
that's how you
adult.
become bold and audacious. And
Yeah,
I bet
exactly.
that everybody we look at that is so bold
Maybe.
has somebody in their life like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's true. Yeah.
That's cool.
I forgot what the other question was.
Yeah, just like getting
vision.
getting a vision for your career rather than feeling like it just happens to you. Because in the arts, it can be so like, what's going to happen? Are they going to say yes?
I know.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the hardest things about the arts is that it so much was these are the decision makers. These people decide my fate, and I'm just presenting myself to them. And it honestly, I felt it killed my spirit so often. And I think New York City is a really hard city. Not that LA wouldn't be a hard city or any other city isn't hard. But New York City is such a hard city. And then also to be in the arts and then to trek to these auditions. And to be at the mercy of their yes or no. So I just had to, I think what I started to do is I had to start finding a way. Like, I'm not sure that I created vision for myself, but I had to start finding a way to feel like I'm taking something back.
Okay.
So actually, here's a great example.
Yeah, do tell.
I don't even know. Like, I don't know. People. So Spelling Bee is a musical. It's called 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And when I went to it, I was going through a rebellious phase. And I don't know why. Because I just was rejected so many times. I was getting so tired of it.
Yeah.
And so I went to my audition book and I ripped out anything that was legit music. And I just only kept pop rock. I'm like, I don't want to sing these things.
Yeah.
Just like, the way you prepare, like, this and maybe other people who are listening know, like the way you prepare is you have all the various types of songs in case they ask you. And I was just in a mood where I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
I love that.
I'm not going to do that. So I think I had gone to several auditions where, I just didn't have things when they asked for me to have those things. Like, I'm not going to do it. But then I auditioned for Spelling Bee, and I knew the callbacks were that afternoon, and it didn't seem like they were calling me back. I had my audition, and then I didn't know at the time, but it was James Lapine outside the door, and he had a sandwich with him. Somebody from the table went to get James outside, had him come in, and they were like, "Can you sing a legit song?" And I was like, "I don't have one with me." And they were like, "Okay, but do you know a legit song?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. Sometimes I'll do this song. It's called Mira. I think it's from Carnival, right?" I'm like, I could do that song. And then poor piano player, they were like, "Do you know that song?
Do you know it?
Can you just play it?" They were like, "Yeah, I'll just play it."
Oh my gosh.
And so I just sing that,
Oh my gosh.
So it's like sometimes I guess I just say that. And now it's funny because I left that audition thinking, what did you do, Dodo? Like, why wouldn't you just be prepared? Like, what are you proving to anybody? You're not proving anything. However, I would just say, sometimes it's okay to just, I'm going to say this again. This is what I love about being older is like you look back at these decisions and you're like, these are bad decisions. These are not wise decisions. However, it's a minor decision. You're rebelling and you're saying, I'm just not going to prepare the things that you want me to do. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And something in that, I think, just like enlivens your spirit just a little bit.
Yes.
And it's not like I had vision for what I wanted.
Yeah.
But then, I learned so much on the way. I feel like I'm telling a story where I'm really passive. I'm like in the backseat of my life where I'm like, somebody else drive and I'm just going to like ride. But what I will say is now I got an executive coach. I hired an executive coach maybe about a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago.
Amazing.
And that's changed my perspective. And I've had to, I think the reason why I don't create vision so much is because I'm just terrified. I think that's like the theme of what I'm saying. I'm just terrified because I'm afraid of failure. And I was just terrified. So then I was just like, okay, what doors are opening? What doors open? And that's where I would walk through. But I think now I'm trying to be on the front foot. Like I'm trying to be front-footed and say, I've created vision.
Right.
I think it was something that like God had created with me.
Yeah.
And maybe imparted to me. And it's also just me watching patterns, right? Like that I feel like I look for patterns all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's something about like training in math. Like I'm just always looking
Yeah.
at. I just like remember certain classes I had where that was a thing. But it's
Yeah.
now how my brain works, where I'm always looking for a pattern, and if I see a pattern, then I think like, well, maybe that's where God's moving.
Wait, tell me about this.
Patterns is just like I'm just trying to see like, oh, I'll give you an example.
Please do.
Okay, I started getting called in for this one show, TV show,
Yes.
and because this is another one of those, like, I'm going to take all the legit songs out of my book. This is a TV show. And I told my husband, I told my agents I'm not auditioning for auditions. So I said, okay, we're going to just approach this differently. And I said, so I'm not trying to book the job. I'm going to do it like a short film production. And I was like, made fun of myself the whole time. I'm like, okay, wardrobe. And then I'd be
Oh
like,
my
I'm
gosh.
here. Okay, let's pick wardrobe. Like, and then I would like look in the camera and be like, oh, it's not good. Send this back to wardrobe. And then, once I was ready, I'd be like, okay, hair and makeup. Like, I'm hair and makeup for my
that's
audition.
so cute.
So it just made it a whole
You're
thing.
just playing.
Yeah, just playing. And Brad was lights and like Brad was the grip. And
You guys are so fun.
they're just doing this thing. And I just designed a short film. And, I'm sure it wasn't like amazing, but I put the scene on tape. I think it was 2 scenes. And then sent it in. And the next day I got put on hold. And so I thought, oh, sorry, I've left out like probably the most important part. I thought like we're not trying to book the job. And also when I go on jobs, normally in the industry, especially when I became a Christian, I always thought I wanted to be aware of what God's doing. So I actually ask that question all the time, like, what are you doing, God? What are you doing? What are you doing? Just so I'm aware.
Yeah.
And if God's not really showing me anything, then okay, no harm, no foul.
At least you asked.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, give me eyes to see. Like, what are you doing? And so a lot of times I used to think auditioning was more about, it's just that I laugh at it now. I don't even know if this is true. I can't wait to go to heaven where like God will tell me, like, was this really what was happening? Because sometimes at auditions, so you know what happened to me a lot? Is that when I'd be auditions, like commercial auditions where you have to be happy and sort of like, people would be like, oh my gosh, like, I'm losing my apartment. And they'd share the hardest, deepest, darkest things. And in my head, I thought, oh, this is interesting. I started to believe, I was like, these auditions aren't about me. Maybe I'll get the job. Maybe I won't. But I think it's about these people.
Wow.
And I think it's about these, like, why does everyone share the deepest, darkest, saddest things? Like some people, one woman was like, oh, like my arm's broken because my boyfriend and I got in a fight and he broke my arm. And I'm like, and then they'd be like, Veronica Reyes-How? I'm like, coming.
Ready to go.
Okay. Like selling IBM. But I just thought, they don't know this, but maybe something in their spirit knows, like, I'm an intercessor. Like, I will pray for this person.
Wow.
And I take that responsibility so seriously. I won't go into the whole story of, like, how I began intercession, but I know what my, like, responsibility on the wall is.
Wow,
and so I just take that with so much, it's just so much responsibility. I always want to be really good with it. So I thought auditions, whenever I got them, and every place I was about interceding and praying over the space. But I would do it when I had the job or when I was at an audition. But now when you get sent auditions, I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah, you're not like going somewhere.
No, so I was like, I'll wait till I book the job. Then when I'm on set, I'll like pray and, try to like, I'll like call on the Holy Spirit and blah, blah, blah. And now I told Brad, I'm like, let's just intercede for all you get. When you get an audition, there's a breakdown that you get with your role description and then also all the like EPs, producers, writers.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's just make a habit of praying and interceding over all of these people.
So beautiful.
And like see what God is saying or doing. And like,
wow.
So that first audition, we did that. I did that. And I just kept praying whenever it came up through that time. And then I didn't get the job. So when you get put on hold, it's probably like you and 2 other people they put on hold, but they pick one.
Yeah.
So I didn't get it. But then I got called in for the same show again. And I'm like, okay, God, you must want me to pray for them again.
Yeah.
And I just kept getting called in for the same show like week after week after week, which that's not normal.
Right.
I've worked in television for, 10 or 12 years now. It's not normal. It's not typical for you to get called in for the same show
right
episode after episode after episode after episode.
Yeah.
So I just thought, you're doing something.
Yeah.
Like patterns, right? So
Right.
I'm
okay.
like,
Yes.
oh, the third audition, I was like, this is a pattern.
Yeah.
You're doing something. You want these people or like you want them to be interceded for.
Yeah.
So it's not just me doing this thing anymore. Like we're partnering. This is
Wow.
something.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because then the week after that, after the third one, I didn't get an audition. So I thought, oh, maybe my intercession time is
Prayer is
done.
done. Yeah.
Yeah. Prayer's done. Okay, great. Moving on. And then somebody called me. This girl called me. She goes to our church and she was like, you know what's so funny? I got this audition and, blah, 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 blah. Like, I know you're a coach. And, and I was like, oh, I don't really coach anymore. I did. And I coached a couple people who are like series regulars. But I'm like, I'm like trying to make shows now.
Yeah.
But she's like, but I just, I thought like maybe you could do this thing and I could pay you. And I was like, well, listen, first one's free. Let me just, I'll go through your audition.
Yeah.
She sends it to me. It's the same show. And I'm like,
That is crazy.
yeah. And so I was like, listen, this means you have to be interceding for these people.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what that means?
God loves
That means,
these people.
Yeah,
for
I was
some-
like,
yeah.
you and I. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it's not just me. It's you and I have to be
You
praying
didn't
for
know.
these people.
This is what you signed up for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and like, I think there's so much grace in it. And I just like laugh because sometimes I'm like so intense. But, I'm like, is this really true? It feels true.
Yeah.
So,
Why not bless them?
yeah. Why
Pray.
not bless them and pray?
God
just
loves them.
blessing and favor over these people.
Yeah, and this show that
Yeah.
apparently needs to get made.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's like an art. It's a show.
Oh, yeah,
that-
but needs to get blessed.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just praying over these people and
Yeah.
favor and, all kinds of things can happen on set where like, accidents happen and whatever. So maybe they just need
Right.
covering.
Yeah.
So
That's so cool.
yeah, so
That is beautiful. And that's
a
vision.
pattern.
That's vision for your career, to love the people around you.
yeah, I think that's the thing that's shifted the most is that making shows working, all the stuff has shifted in that I'm like, this is actually, I mean, maybe other people have this perspective and like I'm just getting onto it now.
Mm,
But it's like none of this stuff is actually about me.
right.
This stuff is actually about something bigger and greater. And I just
Mm.
want to be responsible with that part of, and I think the thing that I do is pray. So it's the one thing that I have. I'm learning how to incorporate fasting into all of that. And I'm
Cool.
learning how to be very persistent in prayer. But
Mm,
in the simplest form, I'm like, okay, just pray for
yeah,
these
start
people.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Thanks.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit, I would love for you to tell us about Pinoy Cinematic Universe and your production company that you started. And yeah, what is your vision now? You're a writer, producer, as well as an actor. And what are you hoping to create in the world?
Yeah, so I will just frame it in that I feel like my vision now is that it's probably the least likely of things to get made. And I'm aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm mixed ethnicity, but mostly Filipino.
Uh-huh.
But like, if you go back, I'm like part Scottish and part English and Chinese
Oh,
and
cool.
part Spanish. Like, it's a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But I feel like mostly I've grown up in like Filipino culture.
Yeah.
And there are no shows about Filipino people.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I just think Filipino people, if anyone knows them, they're so funny to me. They're just, I know I am Filipino and like most of my relatives are Filipino,
Yeah.
but they're such like a funny people. And I just think it's so sad that we don't have any TV shows about them. So actually almost, except for Mother. Mother
Uh-huh.
May Have a Kidney is not a Filipino show,
Uh-huh.
but it has a Filipino character in it.
That's awesome.
But all of the things that I've written so far have been about Filipino people. So
Wow.
my mom is half Filipino, but her last name is White, and I wrote this whole pilot. It's called American Doctor.
Wow.
So I just want to tell stories about underrepresented people and people that we
Yes.
don't. I was doing a play one time where somebody said something, we're talking about like 1800s, and somebody in the cast said something about like Asian people in America. And the writer said, what? There were no Asian people here in America in the 1800s. And I said, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Asian people have come over like in the 1700s. Filipino people were some of the first people over here.
Wow.
Like in I think it's like 1759 to Louisiana, and then also to San Francisco. But, there's just such a rich history of other ethnicities.
Yes.
They were like, no, like in the 1800s, it was only like African Americans and, Caucasians. I'm like, that's not true.
No.
And I get it because that's all you've seen on TV. So when you see that and that's how everything's represented when it's a period piece, okay, that's a perspective. So it's probably the most like unlikely of things to get made but I've just written so many stories about Filipino families, either in modern day or historical fiction. But like one of my favorite ones that I wrote, I'm like telling this here, so hopefully nobody will steal it. But I'll know if you stole it because I've already written it.
Not steal it. They won't.
Nobody stole this idea, but I'm like, have you ever watched Game of Thrones?
My family has. Yeah, I know. Like what
you know of it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you watch it, anyone who watches it, there's just an inordinate amount of candles in like every dinner scene or just like banquet scenes. There's just candles.
Wow.
Everywhere. And I love Game of Thrones. I think it's so interesting. The writing's amazing. The shooting's amazing. But I'm always like, why are there so many candles? I get it. There's no electricity.
Right.
Except for I'm like, there's an insane amount of candles. And then I'm like, who makes those candles? So I wrote this parody version called Flame for Thrones. And it's about a Filipino family who makes all the candles for like all of the kingdoms.
Oh my goodness.
And, of course, they model the whole Game of Thrones thing. There's 3 kids who are like the matriarch. She's like, probably not going to live much longer. But the 3 kids are like vying to run the candle making
company.
business. Yeah. So they're all like trying to vie for her spot in like whatever deception and just fighting each other. So
that's so cool.
So like those are a lot of my stories. And then the other is about like Filipino people in various iterations.
Yeah.
But then one facet that I have started to develop is just also I was at a conference last fall and somebody had said like we never hear about women in the Bible besides like Mary, who gives birth to Jesus, or like Mary Magdalene. You never hear about women in the Bible. And I thought, well, that's like something I can do.
Yeah.
Like, okay, fine, So I'm writing a feature on Deborah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wait, I love that. I love the story of Deborah. So basically I really came to faith when I was 18 but I grew up in the Bible Belt and I grew up going to church and stuff, but I always thought like after I kind of came to faith, I was really scared to go to any like women's event or women's Bible study because I was like, I'm not going to like what they have to say. I was like, I don't want to know what the Bible says about women because I'm not going to agree with it. That's kind of how I felt when I was like, I'm following you, Jesus, but like, I don't really trust that like you are going to align with like my values all the way almost. Sure. And then I went to this women's Bible study expecting it to be like, and be quiet. Like, or just something.
Don't laugh too loud.
And it was the story of Deborah, which,
Best.
And they were like, yeah, women are awesome. And I was like, what? So if you want to give like a 1 minute, like, what is this story? For anyone listening who might be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like Deborah being just a prophetess and the first female judge
in Israel.
But then also like just know, like she also prophesies. She knows the Lord so intimately and is so wise. And then also she's a musician.
Yeah.
She wrote Judges 5 is a whole song. Yeah. So I just think, the multifaceted talents of Deborah and how reliant she was on God. I feel like that's a story that we don't really get to hear about, so it's just something I'm really passionate about. And then I have this whole like other TV series about like women of the Bible.
Wow.
So those are the things. Yeah, I mean, and I feel like I don't always. I guess like the theme of everything is kind of like the underrepresented.
Yeah,
like we don't really hear about women in the Bible so much and their stories, except for like some key players,
right?
Which is fine, but I think like there's a breadth of experiences for women in the Bible that we just need to know.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that's the stuff that I focus on.
That's so beautiful. Wow.
Thanks.
I'm so excited to see
Yeah,
what happens with everything.
I'm hoping someone will make those things
Yes,
and like
they
give me
will.
the funding.
They will. Like you
but-
said to me, it's not that hard. It can be done.
You're right.
You
It's
told
not
me
that
that.
hard.
I was like, yeah, I want to go to production. I have things I want to make. And you're like, it's not that hard. So I'm telling that to you.
True. Although I'm like,
You're like, I know how hard it is.
That's hard.
Anything
No.
can happen though.
Yeah, you're right. Anything can happen. And that's the thing. I just think I trust, I don't feel like I came up with all these ideas on my own. I feel like these are things that I'm like running in tandem with the Lord on.
Yeah.
Obviously, like maybe even just behind. So
Right.
I'm like, God, if you want these things to happen, they'll happen.
They will happen.
I'll just have to figure out the steps and, we'll see whatever happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that.
Who knows?
Okay, I would love to end our conversation with I always feel very encouraged when I spend time with you. And I would love if you have like this, probably most of our listeners are in their 20s, maybe either have this cool career that they want to pursue or a dream in their heart, or they might be like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm figuring it out. Some of them may have a strong faith that kind of keeps them going. Some of them may not. I don't know, any word of encouragement for anyone within that category, just that you would close us out with based on like what you've learned, your own story.
Yeah, I don't know that this is helpful, but I want it to be helpful because I think a lot of times when people hear this, they're like, oh, yeah, sure, you can say that now. But I feel like, and I know because I have like nieces and nephews who are like, in their early 20s or mid 20s. And so, yeah, they're Gen Z. And I think there's just always a lot of like worry and anxiety around plans and what do you need to do and what do you have to do and what's your career going to be. The thing that I would say to encourage people in their 20s is that so many things are coming to mind, but I feel like one of the things I just want to say is doing it scared, right? We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Just doing the things scared. You want to honor your feelings, but sometimes also just acknowledging that you have fear or anxiety around something, but take the steps anyway.
Yes.
And then the other part of it is I listened to this song called Not in a Hurry. I made a like playlist. I make a playlist for myself every year based on like what I think God's doing in my life and how the Lord is leading me. And so I pick songs and I'm like, okay, this is like helping me live into the thing that I feel like I'm called to this year. And I just think Not in a Hurry is such a good reminder for me because I think the world tries to hurry you.
Yeah.
And I think, I hope this doesn't sound morbid, but I always tell Brad, I'm like, sometimes Brad will call me and he'll be like, I'm nervous about this. I'm like, why? We could die today. Why are you worried about this?
Why'd you be scared of that?
Yeah, I'm like, what do you mean you're worried? I'm like, you don't know if you have tomorrow.
No, we actually do need to remember that. I don't even think it's
remember it all the time. I'm like, because, Brad always, like, when you make future plans, I mean, obviously that's it's from scripture, but it's like when you make future plans, I'm like, I don't know that I have the next month. I'm just like,
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. So the thing I sometimes say is like, what's the hurry? So Not in a Hurry is like a song I listen to because it just reminds me, I feel like, God orders our steps. Also, we can trust God. It took me a very long time to believe that.
Right.
Forever. Forever. But it just took me so many years, I would say decades, for me to actually believe that God, I could trust God.
Wow.
And so I just want to impart that to people. It's like, even if you don't believe in God or Jesus, I just think, I think there is a God who loves you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know who he is, then, maybe be curious about that. But I do think our steps can be ordered in a way in which we don't have to hurry and we don't have to, we don't have to worry about what comes next. And I mean, a part of it is like learning how to trust, like trust that the process is working, trust that the thing in front of you is what you're supposed to be doing. I think I spent my 20s and 30s feeling anxious and FOMO-y and I need to be in these things. And I think, I wish somebody had said, like, it's okay. It's okay to not know what you're doing. It's okay to be a mess.
Yeah.
It's okay to just be in the like muck of figuring it out.
So good.
I hope so.
Yeah. I think a lot of us need to hear that. That's really good. Veronica, thank you so much.
Of course.
This was
Thanks
so
for having me.
delightful.
You're always delightful to spend time with,
Oh,
so thank you for
so are
having
you.
me.
You're amazing. Yeah. Guys, you can keep up with Veronica on social media, your websites. I'll link all the stuff down below. Go follow her, see all the amazing things she's doing. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye. Thanks for tuning in, friends. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Substack and Instagram, and send this episode to a friend who you know will love it. Don't forget to be present, dream big, and remember that you are shaping culture right where you are. We can't wait to see you back next week.